Whether for fun, for competition, or simply for transport, there's a skateboard designed for virtually every purpose. Some, though, are a cut above the rest. Here are the top 15 most incredible skateboard designs. Number 15. Big Wheelie Big. Depending on your favorite brand, skateboards come in various different shapes and sizes. There's a trade-off between how big and stable you want the deck to be versus how nimble and how much control you want it to have. But as you'd expect from the skater community, when someone decides to go all out, they go to the extreme. For his show Fantasy Factory in 2009, famous skater and host Rob Dyrdek set out to challenge his team to build the biggest skateboard ever. They didn't just break the record, however, but absolutely smashed it with the design of Big Wheelie Big. This monster skateboard was 36 feet and 7 inches long, and 8 feet 8 inches wide, 3 feet 7 inches tall. It's exactly 12.5 times the size of a standard skateboard, and is so large that 5 adults can stand on it at once with plenty of room to spare. From the original concept, it only took 3 months for them to build the board, and it's still touring different events to this day. Of course, it's merely a novelty, and it's impossible to perform any tricks with it, but it's ideal for rolling down a hill with as many people on top of it that dare. Number 14. The Next Board. While purists will always prefer a traditional skateboard design, companies are now looking at ways to incorporate new technologies to offer something a little different to riders. The Next Board is one of the best examples of this, and right from the start you can see that this is no ordinary board. Made from carbon fiber to ensure it's as light as possible, it has inbuilt batteries and motors attached to each wheel. This electronic assistance means that it's able to reach a top speed of 68 miles an hour without the need for a rider to generate momentum themselves. And it has an impressive top range of 20 miles before needing to recharge. The board connects wirelessly to your phone, which is how you control it, and there's plenty of tech on board to ensure the ride is as smooth and safe as possible. The company has even redesigned the wheels they use to be able to handle the loads they're subjected to, and have designed it so they can be modified in all the usual ways. It may not be the board of choice for pros, but if you want an easy way to travel, and one that's just as fun as a normal skateboard without requiring as much effort, then the Next Board is surely the way to go. Number 13. Flowboard. Said to be a combination of skating, surfing, and snowboarding, the unusual-looking Flowboard is truly one of a kind. There are 3 sizes available: the smaller, which is 32 inches and designed for tricks, the standard size, which is 36 inches long, and the large, which is 42 inches long and is designed to pick up insane speed down hills. Instead of having a wheel at each corner, the Flowboard instead has an arc of wheels at the front and back. The designers behind it realized there's a limited angle of tilt on a normal skateboard, usually around 25 degrees. But with this design, the turning ability is 45 degrees. It's this motion that makes it feel more like snowboarding but on asphalt, and enables riders to have far more precision in their movement. The way that the wheels adjust on the frame, however, means that it's a completely different ride experience than most people are used to, and it takes some practice to get the most out of. Normally, there'll only be 2 wheels in contact with the ground instead of 4, and because this results in more focused weight distribution, the board requires more effort to keep moving, meaning it really comes into its own when you're skating downhill. Number 12. Carbon Fiber Skateboard. If you have a traditional maple wood skateboard, you'll be more familiar with how prone they can be to being chipped, razor tailing, and generally beginning to feel soggy over time, which can majorly impact what you're able to do with it. This degradation means that you either need to get a new board to keep up with the rest, or maybe you might consider getting one that's made from a completely different material altogether. Manufacturers that are at the forefront of board design have developed several new polymers, which, along with the use of carbon fiber, make the decks far stronger than have previously been possible. They still use wood, but coat it in these new materials to bolster its strength and resilience. No longer do you have to worry about chips, and some can be 20 times more razor tail resistant than normal boards. The big question, of course, is whether these boards can pop in the same way as purely wooden ones, and according to the companies behind them, you'll be impressed with the results. Some designs claim to have twice the energy return that you get from maple boards, so using a polymer composite board might even improve your game down at the local skate park. Number 11. Solarc Longboard. Solarc is another company that's attempted to create a skateboard that, instead of feeling every bump and crack in the street, feels more like you're sliding down a fresh mound of snow. Their unique approach to board design doesn't appear all that different from a distance, but when you look closer, you'll realize there's something very unusual about it. The board is made up of two main sections. The first is a traditional maple wood deck, but instead directly being on top of the wheels, it's mounted onto a curved composite spring, and the wheels are attached beneath this part. The spring acts as a suspension unit and gives the sensation of a soft carve as you speed along. It's an increasingly popular design, particularly with those who have a surfing or snowboarding background, because it almost makes it feel as if you're floating over the asphalt. The other benefit of the spring is that when you're experienced, you can use it to propel yourself forwards too, so your feet never need to leave the deck, allowing you to perfect your stance more precisely. With electric versions also available, converts to the Solarc Longboard say they'll never go back to what they had before. Number 10. Wasteboards. In our modern age where there's so much concern about the use of materials and products, it can seem a shame to use freshly cut wood or newly produced plastic in any objects that we buy. For those who are environmentally minded, there's an option for buying a new board instead of finding one in a secondhand store, and the initiative is being spearheaded by a company called Wasteboards. Quite simply, they make skateboards out of recycled plastic, in particular the thick bottle caps that are otherwise extremely difficult to repurpose. After 2 years of research and development to the perfect process, they've developed a technique that makes incredible boards, both in the way that they ride and the way that they look. As a bonus, no two boards will ever look alike because they'll be made from a different selection of colored bottle caps each time. Strength was a real concern, but they've proved that you can drive a car over one of the boards without it cracking. With the addition of 200 anti-slip studs along a concave, you'll have just as much grip on the deck as you'd expect, which means you'll be able to pull off the same tricks as you've always done. As a way to recycle but also to have a fresh board, the idea behind Wasteboards will surely be a big thing in the coming years. Number 9. LED skateboards. For a long time, street racers have modified their cars to feature countless different upgrades, but the most noticeable of all is undoubtedly the installation of neon lights on the exterior. This used to be a complicated process that involved attaching the lights underneath the car and wiring them into the car's power system, so were only feasible on vehicles that had engines and batteries, but with improvements with technology, this is no longer the case. You can now find cheap and easy LED strips in stores and online, and instead of needing to be plugged into the mains, they can operate on battery power alone. This has opened up a whole new range of ways in which they can be used, one of which is being fitted to skateboards. This now means that boarders too can appear to be traveling on top of a carpet of light as they skate through the streets at night. Not only does it look awesome if done properly, but it's also a lot safer because other road users find it much easier to see them.
We are constantly adding more people to the Top 5's production team to bring you all the best content. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on and hit the like button.
Number 8. The Pogo. Revealed in 2005, the Pogo was heralded as the next big thing in the world of skateboarding. While it may not have taken off as well as the manufacturers would have hoped, there's no denying that the design was ingenious and opened up a whole new way for people to board. The name itself is a combination of pump and go, and this explains how the board works. The deck is mounted on top of springs and supports which are connected to the wheel units, and all a user has to do is apply pressure downwards. This makes the wheels move further away from each other, and because the springs pull them back together, creates forward momentum. The Pogo was billed as the first human-powered push-free skateboard, and incredibly it worked exactly as planned. There's no batteries or motors involved, and by all accounts it uses up just as much energy as traditional skateboards, so it still gives a good workout. The main difference, of course, is the feel of the ride, and it's said to be much more similar to surfing than skating. It's also extremely easy to use, with most people being able to skate along the street with as little as 10 minutes of trying. Number 7. Glassboard. When you think about it, skateboards perform two main functions. The first, of course, is to provide you a platform to hurl along the streets and perform tricks as you go. But the other is an art piece that looks incredibly cool. To live up to the second need, manufacturers spend huge resources on developing new paint designs or materials to make the boards from. And there's one that's proved popular in recent years, if not a little dangerous, and that's a board made from glass. The first ones to be made obviously faced a major problem. While they look awesome, glass is an extremely fragile material, and as soon as it's exerted to any of the pressures a skateboard goes under, it's guaranteed to break into pieces. For a while then, glass skateboards were simply things to put on display and not actually use, but things have come a long way since then. Someone realized that if you made a board from bulletproof glass, which is by nature designed to withstand concentrated pressures, then it could work well as a skateboard. The results have been a success, and while they don't have the pop that you'd expect from a maple board, it's at least possible to now ride a glass skateboard without risking serious injury. Number 6. Illuminati Boards. Illuminati is another company that makes skateboards from recycled material, but rather than using wood, plastic, or carbon fiber, they use something else entirely: aluminum. As such a commonly used substance in production, it's perhaps no surprise that there's plenty of scrap aluminum available to be recycled. But the company only uses the best, and all of theirs comes from repurposed aircraft. As you'd expect from metal that's used to enclose a vehicle that travels at fast speeds and flies high up in the air, the aluminum is very strong and durable. This makes for a rigid and sturdy board that doesn't have as much give as a maple one would, but also doesn't suffer from degradation in the same way. To further enhance their green credentials, the company makes each board to order in their workshop in the US, which means there's no unnecessary stockpiles, and the boards don't have to travel very far from where they're made to the customer. Available in a wide range of designs, with an Illuminati board you'll be sure to turn heads, while doing your part to help preserve the environment as well. Who knows, you may even find yourself skating on a board that, at some point, was part of an aircraft you've flown in as well. Number 5. The Honeycomb. Quite often, when looking for a new way of designing things, we need only look at the animal kingdom to take inspiration. Honeycombs have been incorporated into a number of different devices and products because when the hexagonal shapes are combined together, they're extremely strong, something that ensures hives can endure sudden impacts or attacks. Honeycombs also look cool, which is probably why they were first used in skateboard designs, but they've since been found to have an unexpected effect on the way the ride feels. There are two ways a honeycomb board can be made. First is by starting with a maple wood board and carefully drilling holes into it to create the design, and the second is by building a honeycomb structure from composite materials. Either way, the resulting board has far more flex in it than other designs, while retaining its strength, and this opens up a new range of possibility for tricks, as the board is far more responsive. Hydroflex, a surfboard manufacturer, has perfected their own process to build honeycomb boards from foam, fiberglass, and resin, and they claim that their products are far stronger than typical wooden boards, more resilient, and they don't lose their flex or become warped over time. This could well be just the beginning, however. There may be even better structures for boards that channel the energy in beneficial ways to give riders far more control over their movements so that they can perform in ways never before thought possible. Number 4. Obliquo Skateboard. Despite traditional skateboards being virtually perfect and more than capable of performing under the pressure that's exerted upon them, companies have long been trying to develop their own version that'll become the next big thing. It was only a few years ago that hoverboards began being sold around the world, and who can forget the crazy design of the snakeboard too? Despite there being mixed success in introducing new concepts like these, manufacturers keep on trying, and one of the more unique ideas is the Obliquo Skateboard. This took the idea of the snakeboard and took it to the extreme. The basic design gives two platforms that the rider stands on, and these are connected by a bar. Amazingly, however, instead of having wheels mounted beneath the platforms, they are instead much larger, are hubless, and spin completely around the rider's feet. The decks are made from epoxy-coated birch plywood, while the frame is made from aluminum alloy, and the result is what the company calls a personal urban vehicle that feels partly like a skateboard, partly like a snakeboard, and is incredibly fun to use. They aren't targeted at normal skateboard users, but to people who want an alternative way to travel the streets of their city. It's designed for transport rather than thrills and tricks, but that doesn't mean that once you become proficient at using one, you won't be able to go to the local skate park and show off your moves. Number 3. Dirt Surfer. One of the limitations of skateboarding is that it's only really possible on a hard surface. On water you can surf, on a mountain you can snowboard, and on asphalt you can skateboard. But what if you wanted to do a similar thing off-road? An Australian company called Dirt Surfer has the solution and designed a new concept inline board that allows you to do just that. Known as the Dirt Surfer, it's made up of aircraft aluminum tube frame, a deck, and crucially 2 BMX-style wheels. Foot straps can be added to help you keep stable, but the most important element of the design is that the front wheel can pivot in line with the terrain it's crossing, and the weight of the rider automatically brings the rest of the board in line with it. The rear wheel also has a disc brake for added control, and both of these result in something unusual for boards. The faster you go, the more stable it becomes. They can be used downhill by using gravity to provide the momentum, or it can be skated in the normal way too, by using one foot to push yourself forward. The ride is described as being similar to carving through the snow on a snowboard, and since the company released the first model in the early 2000s, there's a wide range of different configurations available. It's also become a sport in its own right, with 3 official disciplines: downhill riding, street riding, and kiting, where the dirt surfer is used on a flat surface and the rider is pulled along by kites. It's designs like these that really push the envelope in what's possible to do on a board, and show how far we've come since the first skateboard. Of course, there's nothing that can replace a wooden deck with wheels in terms of its simplicity and intuition, but as a secondary board, the dirt surfer is surely up there with one of the best that you could choose. Number 2. The XWay X1. Particularly if you're traveling a long distance on your skateboard, it can be quite tiring work having to push yourself forward with your foot. This is fine for shorter distances, but technology has now advanced to a stage where it can offer clever solutions to make boards accessible to everyone and anyone who wants to use one. Possibly the most advanced and ingenious of any on the market right now is called the XWay X1, and it takes electrically powered boards to a whole new level. Its slick design is portable and discreet for when you aren't riding, but as soon as you put it on the ground, you can't help but be tempted to step up onto it. The deck is flexible enough to be fun while feeling stable and comfortable, and is powered by a removable fast swap smart battery, which means that you can easily switch it for a spare if you've run out of power. Each battery gives a range of 20 miles and takes a little more than a half hour to fully charge. Amazingly, despite having individual motors on each wheel, the XWay X1 only weighs 15 pounds, which makes it one of the lightest electric boards you can buy. It comes with a remote that's used to determine the gear and speed, and gives control over the smart lighting system that's used to inform other road users of your presence in the dark. Furthermore, even though it's packed with electronics, the board is IP55 waterproof, so you don't need to worry about using it in the rain or gliding through any big puddles on your way home. Number 1. Mahaka Original. While there may have been countless developments in skateboarding technology over the past decades, there's only one skateboard that could even be considered to be the most incredible of all, and that's the first one that inspired millions of people to take up the sport themselves. The sport has its origins in the late 1950s, where surfers in Los Angeles were looking for ways to take their passion with them when they weren't on the waves, or simply when the conditions weren't right to surf. These early skaters made basic boards, which were essentially planks of wood with wheels attached to them, and would skate around the car parks of Venice Beach. Of course, what they did then was very different to the boards we're familiar with, and the big change was developed by the man that most people credit with the invention of the sport, Larry Stevenson. He was a lifeguard on Venice Beach at the time, and was so taken with this new idea that he started the Mahaka Skateboard Company, named after a beach in Hawaii. He was responsible for making the first high-quality boards, and held the first skateboard competition in 1963. It was his invention of the kicktail and subsequently the double kicktail that would really change things. However, because with this, boarders could, for the first time, perform amazing tricks. Most of the early boards that were made by Mahaka haven't survived more than a half-century since. Made from wood, they have warped, cracked, or broken in a number of ways over time, so there are very few originals still available to collectors. Still, those that do exist were at the forefront of a sporting revolution that's popular today as it's ever been, and for all skateboard enthusiasts, will always have a special place in their memory.
Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.